Well, Anand Menon is director of the UK in a Changing Europe, regular guest on our show here, and professor of European politics and foreign affairs at King's College London. Hi, Anand.
Hi, Rachel.
And
How are you?
I'm all right. I will confess, I heard this name checked on another podcast yesterday. Someone said, if you want to know Kwasi Kwarteng, listen to his interview that Anand Menon did with him a couple of years ago, because you really get a sense of who he is as a politician and what his beliefs are. So just tell us about that chat you had with him a couple of years back.
Yeah, so this was back in 2019, a different political world, obviously. But I mean, a couple of things came across, I think. One, he's immensely thoughtful. I mean, he's a very, very bright guy. I mean, he's written a few books. He's an economist himself. His dad was an economist. He thinks deeply about economics. But secondly, he's someone who wants to leave his mark. He has a very, very strong sort of reforming spirit about him, which I suspect is why Liz Truss has put him where she has, because this is a government with a very clear and quite radical economic agenda. Now, whether they can implement that at a time of rising fuel bills, we'll have to wait and see. But I think tax cuts is something that Kwasi Kwarteng believes in quite fervently.
So if he sits sort of slightly to the right of that political economic spectrum, the sort of free market libertarian view of things, that's going to be a strange environment for him to navigate when he's borrowing loads of government money to pay for our electricity bills.
Absolutely. And I mean, to a point, you've got to wonder what utility these left-right labels have anymore, because, you can come into government saying you want a small state, you want to cut taxes, but in the same breath, you're saying we have to help every household and business in the country with rising energy costs and, increase borrowing to levels that sort of old-fashioned conservatives would have blanched at. So it's an uncomfortable mixture. And the thing we don't know is whether that increase in public spending plus tax cuts is going to work in the sense of generating the growth that Liz Truss was saying yesterday is absolutely central to our economic plans.
Do you get the sense he's collegiate, that he'll take on board the advice and guidance from others around him?
Yeah, I mean, by all accounts from Whitehall, he's someone that civil service servants can work with. One of the issues, of course, is that during Liz Truss's campaign to become Prime Minister, she made a lot of criticising what she called Treasury orthodoxy. That is to say, there's a sort of, her accusation is there's a sort of groupthink in the Treasury that has prevented us being radical enough to get the sort of growth that she says she wants. So that will be interesting to follow, whether or not he's someone who's willing to take on his civil servants and challenge them to do things differently.
The other thing is much has been made of the diversity of the cabinet, and it is a bit more ethnically diverse than previous cabinets, but it's not as socially diverse, actually. 70% of the cabinet went to private or independent schools. So do you think someone like Kwasi Kwarteng really gets what people are going through at the moment?
I think it'd be very hard to be in politics and to have to talk to constituents and not understand the pain that people are feeling. And on the diversity thing, you're right. I mean, on the one hand, it matters, I think, tremendously that you see different sorts of faces around the cabinet table. For kids from ethnic minority backgrounds, or for young girls looking at cabinet and seeing that there are ethnic minorities and women who've made it really matters, I think, symbolically. But ultimately in politics, you're judged by what you do, not by who you are. So I think wherever you come from, ultimately, you're going to be judged on whether or not the measures you put in place help people. And I think this government is acutely aware of that, because there's an election about 2 years away.
Yep. Thanks for bringing that up already.